Hello and welcome to the next video in my series on the CFMOTO 800 MT Touring Edition. You'll have to forgive me today. I've been quite sick for the last few days, really stuffy and blocked up, so I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm having difficulty breathing, because I am. But I really wanted to get out. This is my day off during the week, and it just happens to be a relatively nice day, so I wanted to go for a ride and keep the videos coming. And this one is going to be about so last time I made a video about the 5 things I like the most about this bike, and just to balance it up, I thought I'd point out a few things that maybe are some downsides about this bike, which again has probably been covered by hundreds if not thousands of other people on YouTube, so I might just be confirming what they say, or maybe I'll touch upon something else. But I hope you enjoy the video regardless. Anyway, so the first thing that I really don't like about this bike, and this is by far, everything else is kind of nitpicking, but this is the one thing that I really dislike. And that is the fact, it's nothing wrong with the bike itself, it's just that every bastard has an opinion on it, whether you ask them for it or not. It really bothers me. Normally I'm good at ignoring people like that, but it really gets my goat. I know this bike is built in China, and that's contentious, and I acknowledge the geopolitical issues that come with that. But then at the same time, the same people who criticize this bike being made in China, it's like they've got a window of tolerance for things up to a certain size. You know, if it's a phone, yep, no worries. If it's a GoPro, yep, that's still under the size limit, that's fine. If it's a TV, yep, yeah, no worries, that's fine. If it's a fridge, yep, still cool with that. Is it a motorbike? No way. I'm gonna kick up a stink and fill comment sections about it. And there are even people who joined forums for CFMOTO owners just to pay out on us for having a go, buying an affordable bike that we can actually get out and ride and enjoy, just to make us feel miserable, I suppose. So that's my biggest thing. I had the same thing happen to me when I had a boat which I loved, and it had an Evinrude motor on it, and I never would have known pre-buying a boat, unlike with motorbikes, which I had some history with. I was new to boats when I bought one, and I never knew there was a whole faction in the boating community that absolutely hated Evinrude motors, and that every time you'd unload your boat at the boat ramp, someone would walk up to you, same type of person every time, and tell you how much they hated Evinrudes, the E-Tech engines. And every time I'd say, oh, tell me your experience with the Evinrude that you owned that helped you form this opinion. And none of them ever had owned an Evinrude E-Tech themselves. It was always, oh, I've heard from a friend of mine who knew a bloke at the boat club in Sydney who now they'll never buy one of those Evinrudes because they're particularly unreliable. And I just never found that, never matched my experience. I loved mine, and it's kind of the same with this. Is people come up to me and they say, oh, you've got one of those CFMOTOs, they're Chinese crap, aren't they? And I try to balance that by saying, look, I'm skeptical, and I'm going to remain skeptical about it because I'm a reasonable science-based human being, and I'll make an opinion based on facts as they come to me. But as it is at the moment, it's standing on its own, and it's doing a great job, and I'm happy with it. And I'll say, what's your opinion based upon? And as always, it's based upon a pit bike that they bought 20 years ago, or the fact that they don't particularly like China for some reason. So I don't know, it's for some reason I keep getting drawn into it. I feel silly about it, but it's one of those things that bothers me the most, and it's my least favorite thing about this bike, unfortunately. And I think I'm starting to come to terms with the fact that it's just going to be something that I have to get used to. The second thing is it's so similar. It's really similar. It's CFMOTO have this partnership with KTM, and you know, this is the 790 engine, and it is widely publicised that KTM have let their customers down big time with some serious camshaft issues on those bikes, and they've really failed to acknowledge and rectify those issues, and that's shameful from a company. And I can understand people's skepticism and frustration about that engine, and then an iteration of that engine being used in this bike. But it becomes the spreading of misinformation when people keep saying that about this bike, when CFMOTO have rectified those issues. And to my knowledge, there hasn't been a single camshaft failure in any of the CFMOTO 790 engines to date. So when I keep seeing reviews of this bike online, and I keep seeing references to that issue that are relevant to the KTM bikes but not to the CFMOTO bikes, it kind of frustrates me. But I guess that's that whole thing about people love to jump online, speak their opinion anonymously, get whatever negative thoughts they've got on their mind off their mind, and unfortunately it brings other people down in the process. That's just kind of the world we live in, isn't it? So yeah, that's the other thing, it should be a good thing, an association with KTM, but let's be honest, they're not renowned for their reliability, and the customer service over this issue has left a lot to be desired, which is, you know, shame on them for that. But thankfully, it seems, as a CFMOTO consumer, it seems to me that they've rectified that issue. I saw in a video, a really good video, where someone showed a technical drawing of the cylinder head for a CFMOTO version of this engine, and the old I think it was like a 2021 790 engine from a KTM, and you could see the differences they'd made to the cylinder head to ensure that the cam wasn't starved for oil, which was causing the excess wear. So I wish I could find that video again. I've had another search for it, I can't find it. If I do find it, I'll pop it in a link of this video, or if someone else knows where it is, you're welcome to pop it in the comment section. Okay, so that's two things. So we've got the fact that it's Chinese and the fact that it's associated with KTM. So far nothing particularly wrong with the bike, so I don't want to sound like a fanboy. I really am a skeptic. You know, my last two bikes were Triumphs, but they were made in Thailand, let's not forget that. So I'm always on the lookout for things that are going to go wrong, and trying to anticipate these things. I guess that's just the anxiousness in me as well. So the third thing that I really don't like is there are, for the most part, the build quality, I can't fault it. Up against my Triumphs, I can't fault it. There are a couple of areas though that have let me down. So I've laid this down 2 times really gently, so I was almost at a standstill. Both times I was on gravel, boot slipped out from underneath me, and as I slowly did the splits, I laid it down gently onto the road surface and was able to pick it back up again, no problems. But that slight jarring on those two occasions. So the first occasion, the right driving light, the mounts for that, all three of them broke. And then on the second occasion, the same thing happened, but on the other side. So I've had to epoxy both of my driving lights back on, which should not happen. It's good that the driving lights, the actual cover that goes on the top of them is made of metal, but it adds a bit of weight, and it turns out the cover, the light, and the housing for the light and everything is all held in place by I think it's 3 screws, and they're encased in plastic, and it was the plastic that failed, and I had to epoxy that up, and they're as good as brand new now, if not better. And you wouldn't know to look at the bike, but definitely not ideal. And in both cases I was able to, I think I've got photos, but I was able to cable tie the driving lights back on, get home without any dramas, and just mix up some epoxy and stick them on. So it's not the best repair I've ever done in my life, but it's functional, and I'm all about function. So that's 3 things. The 4th thing I don't like is something that they rectified somewhat on the Explorer, or the Explorer version, and the MT, the 450 MT, is this. I don't think this is an adventure bike. I think this is an adventure touring bike, but I do like the capability of going somewhat off-road onto unsealed surfaces and stuff like that. And I just wish they'd put some stock tyres on that, which would have been a little bit more suitable for the purpose of doing that, because the ones they've put on here, I can't complain about their road holding abilities. The back one's starting to get quite worn down, but in terms of going off-road, they're pretty useless. I've discovered that the hard way a couple of times. Even in gravel, you've just got sort of nothing to bite into the gravel. So it would have been nice, and like I said, they have rectified that on the Explorer version of this and the 450 MT, which do come with much better tyre choices for this type of bike. But yeah, it is frustrating to me. Like I said in my last video, one of the things I love about this bike is that it's a complete package, but if I'm really being honest, one thing that makes it incomplete is that it doesn't really have tyres that are fit for purpose. So everything else is great about the bike in that regard, but it is a bit of a bummer that they cheaped out on the tyres somewhat. It'd be nice if I could get around this truck. The 5th thing about this bike that probably lets it down a little bit, but as I mentioned in the 5 things I like about this bike video, I've sort of come to, to get used to, is what has been described as a snatchy throttle. And look, it has been improved. It's definitely not as bad as it was when I first got it, and the subsequent maps were redone. They've improved it, and I really do enjoy its responsiveness now that I'm used to it. But that said, I don't really have to ride it around in town. I don't take it off-road very much in situations where that could be problematic. I really like these free-flowing roads where where I can really, you know, push on a little bit, which is good, you know, because Australia's a big place. A lot of our roads are like this. But if I ever do want to get, if I ever go through the city, that might be a problem. I've heard of people wearing through their clutch plates quicker because they're having to pull the clutch in a lot more. So you're gonna let me pass? Yeah, let's go for it. Okay, we just got past that truck. He wasn't going to let me pass without a fight. Bit of a jerk. Yeah, so the throttle response, particularly during low speed, is probably a little bit problematic. It doesn't bother me, if I'm being honest, but it definitely did at first, and I could see why some people would be put off this motorbike by it. But at the same time, I've heard that a lot of bikes that are Euro 5, I think it is, suffer from the same problem, particularly those ride-by-wire ones. And I can certainly say, when I took this for a test ride, I noticed it, but it's not the deal breaker that people make it out to be. It doesn't make this thing unrideable. And maybe if you do think it's unrideable, maybe you know, yeah, I don't know what to say that's keeping it kind. Maybe you just need to reassess your riding style, and or just practice and give it time, you know, practice, and take time to get used to the new bike and the way it feels. Anyway, we've reached our destination. There's a few other things I could have said, but they're not deal breakers. The feel of the indicator button, everyone mentions that, and yeah, it's pretty crap. But it's got the self-cancelling function, which means it doesn't end up being as much of a problem as you think it's going to be. The menu system, once you get used to it, you can use it without thinking about it. It does take a little while to get used to, but I still haven't managed to receive a phone call on it, but I don't mind that at the same time too. When I'm out on the motorbike, I'm trying to relax, and it's an enterprise to benefit my mental health. At the end of the day, I don't want to be taking phone calls, to be honest, unless it's from my wife. But anyway, I'm here, I'm at Rawson. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for the people who have subscribed. It's meaningful. It's really nice of you to do that. And if there's anything you'd like me to make a video on, just let me know. One of my friends, who's a teacher, she's only ever been on the back of another bike before, and that was my whole bike. And she wants to go again, so I thought we maybe do a video with her about what it's like to be a pillion on this bike, just to get the views of a pillion, and a relatively new pillion, on how comfortable this thing is, especially now that I've got the top box on the back, which offers that little bit more support. Alright, well, thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you soon.